Welcome back to Wealth and Wisdom. I just want to give God thanks and praise for wealth and wisdom. I also want to thank all our internet listeners. You're listening on Romy Radio, Positively Power Pack. You're listening from YouTube, Facebook. Welcome back to Wealth and Wisdom. Now, it is very critical. One of the things that the Lord have been laying on my spirit is the treatment of the poor, because the poor are suffering globally, and they are suffering in many ways. And it is the responsibility, while it is the responsibility of the poor for their financial decision, it is the responsibility of leaders of every sector to equip the poor, the church, regardless of what government, the government of God, which is the church, the civil government, or the family, need to we come together to equip the poor, because the poor will always be among us, and God love the poor. And different successive government globally has come in, and if you're looking at the policies and system, you realize that most of the system and most of the laws that are taking place globally, the life of the poor is becoming worse. So I'm going to be reading from Proverbs 31, and I speak about 8 and 9. It said, open your mouth for the dumb. Open your mouth in the cause of all such that are appointed to destruction. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. Now, God is speaking in here that, we, regardless of what, there are many within the prophetic and also kings, that they must open their mouth. It's very rare there anyone that are standing for the poor. And we have seen many politicians make different promises that their life will be better. And after, they start to implement laws that is allowing the poor life to be difficult, more taxes, more benefits that have been taken away. Businesses have given free rein to exploit the poor, price increase. And, very few people, even the church itself, with a prophetic voice, and we have seen in the book of Micah, where God, Micah identify himself with the poor, and he begin to speak, for the poor. And that is one of the role of the prophet, to speak to the poor that are suffering, to speak to the voiceless. If God give you a position, regardless of what position, then he always give you a position and influence that you can speak on behalf. We have seen many people are becoming homeless. Many are on the street. There are even government, giving people ticket to feed the poor. Benefits have been taken away. Some have been jailed and, have been treated. Some have been dying in the sea. They have been drowned. They have been sold. Their body parts have been sold. And, businesses, have been increasing price. And, very few people that would speak for the poor itself. And when we even read, in Matthew, and let us look at Matthew, 25 in terms of what the Bible said. Because one of the things that the Lord is saying to me, that, God judge administration, he will judge churches, he will judge government, he will judge a business by the way we treat the poor, even with business that would prosper. And, when they make great profit and increase, God specifically said into his word that those businesses should ensure that they take, help those within the gates. Now we have seen people have been moving the poor out of different areas and, throwing them in places where their life is becoming more difficult. And, there are companies that are making billions of dollars and are using this money to promote immorality and to promote, different stuff, and God want those money to, to help the poor, whether it be education, whether it be giving a scholarship, lift their life up. There are many children right now I'm speaking are dying for hunger. There are different countries right now where there is no water. As they drink the water, they die because the water is not safe. And just as our United Nations speaking about the Sustainable Development Goal, and clean water, safe water is one of the areas. And most, if you look on the stats in terms of survey, so most of the disasters that are taking place, the 70%, in terms of national disaster and, water which is unsafe, people have been dying, and even the infant have been dying. And it is not difficult for each and every one of us globally. And that's why God give us wealth. He bless each of us to be a blessing. He said he allow us to make profit, that we will help the unfortunate, not to mistreat or ill-treat the unfortunate. It is so happened that most time, the business sector or, politician will use them, in terms of promoting themselves to ride on their back for power. And then automatically they will turn their back. And God want in this season is judging nation. And Matthew 25, Jesus said, when he said there will be judgment on nation. And most time we have seen different disasters that have been taking places, whether it be earthquake or volcano, or, last year, we have seen a great shaking in terms of disaster, hurricane. And, many people are asking, what caused this disaster, to take place? And, one of the things, if you read the Bible carefully, you will realize that, most of the disaster, according to Matthew, is because of God. When we look at Matthew 25, verse 34, when God said, then shall the king say unto them, on his come on the right hand, and come you blessed, and my Father right hand, come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom, prepare for you, for the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. And then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry, and fed you, or thirsty, and gave you drink? And now, look at it. There are millions of dollars. Different people have different clothes, different shoes, a lot of wealth. Animals have been treated better. People have been spending billions of dollars on the, beauty product, while the poor have been suffering. And we can make a change. Even $1 can make a change, in terms of how we treat the poor, because God is getting ready right now to shake nations again and to uncover politicians. Many of them, there are billions of dollars they have share up among each other. While they pressure and pass laws, to come against the poor, while they themselves don't live by the rule that they set. Now, the poor also responsible for their financial decision. And this is very critical, because unless the poor, begin to, to have a different views in terms of prosperity, because God wants to change their life. And we know the poor are forgotten within society, and the drastic local and global decisions that are being made, do not include the input, of the poor. So it is critical for the poor to make better decisions if they want to see drastic change take place. Now, first, the poor must begin to have a different perception and perspective of things. And when we read Mark 8, verse 23 to 25, It reminds us that Jesus had to literally pull the man away from his community before his eye could open to see the truth. So sometimes you have to pull away from your family. You have to pull away from your friends, your culture, the curse that is in the midst, amen, the mindset of the people that you are surrounded with. Because God wants to change the life of many poor that they can help each other, because the poor most time will have a compassion for each other based off of what they go through. We have to understand that the mindset of the people have to change in order to see clearly and to get the right perspective, or else you will only see disfigured image. I'm calling on the poor right now. While we speak about the different governments, the family, whether the government of God, the civil government, or the businesses within the society, supposed to help the poor. The poor need to rise up and be wise right now if their lifestyle is about to, going to change, and that for fair distribution. Now, poverty always stems from a state of mind, and the state of mind can bring blindness. The poor need to begin to see like the rich. They make and save every cent, and they spend those, money on, self-empowerment. The poor will spend millions on funeral, want to have a splashy funeral. They will also, while they will refuse to spend one dime on self-empowerment, the poor will use social network to waste time and money. You have to use up data and phone card, and most time they use it for idling and gossiping, while the rich will use the social media to make money. So what's been happening is that the rich have been using the ignorance and the lack of wisdom, of the poor to make money. And God want to, change the life of the poor. Jesus came. He said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. And the number one mandate of Christ, not just to restore mankind, was to open the people, to empower them to begin to, look to God, and to begin to realize that God is their source. They need to understand that the poor. Now, the poor waste money on appearance to show a false lifestyle, while the rich will sell the things the poor use to maintain a false lifestyle. So do you see, and that's a question that each and every one to listen to, liquor store, abortion clinic, payday loans, store, pawn shop, tattoo, parlor.
Are you tired of the devil coming against your marriage, coming against your children and your family? He's coming against your finances and your business. He's coming against your health, your mind, and character. Well, I have a perfect solution for you. Get a copy of Apostle Steve Liston book today on Amazon.com called Born to Win. Get the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that you need to destroy the enemy's plan against your destiny, and phenomenal strategies to birth out the winner that's inside of you. Yeah, that's right, the winner that God has called you to be. It's your winning season, and it's time to win. Get your copy today on Amazon.com. By Apostle Steve Liston, Born to Win.
Welcome back to Revelation Time. Welcome back from our short break. Yes, as we continue to speak about the poor need to stop making choice based on emotions and short-term benefits. And particular, when voting, they need to cut down, on fast food and popular brand name, and buy more things in wholesale. The poor spend a lot of money on brand name, and sometimes these brand name are not even special. Amen. And they need, even when they are voting, as I said before, to think carefully. Many times politicians will just go in and make promises on a short-term basis and would deceive them. So they need to open their eyes and stop make decision and on a short terms. They need to make decision on a long-term basis. So the poor need to make decision. When they are making decision, they need to put their children and grandchildren in mind, because they have to understand that the rich has no political loyalty, none. So the poor need to be wise. They need to make decisions. So, there are many people within the community, especially what they call the project or the inner city community, and they will burn and they will vote for one party, regardless of the abuse, that they go through and the deception that they go through. They will continue, to vote for that party, and they will never ever change. And the time has come for them to begin to think about their children, think about their grandchildren in terms of making decisions, because they need to understand that if the poor, continue to, to be diehard supporters of any political party, they will become poorer. And that is why Jesus have to, lead that person out of the community and lay hands on him. At first, when Jesus lay hands on him and asks him a question, what do you see? He says, man walking like trees. Amen. That means there is vision. Their vision is this figure. And God wants to give them a vision because God loves the poor. That's why he said specifically in the scripture that he will judge nations. And it is the responsibility of each and every one, to realize, in terms of their suffering and what is happening, and children are dying. So the poor need to be wise, right? The poor need to understand that politicians only serve, what benefit them. So the moment the politician, realize that you cannot benefit them as the poor, they will turn their back on you. And most time when you as the poor put them in power, they forsake you until election come around, and they will move or network or key company with the rich, right? While they will use you while the rich, to keep them in power. The rich have no loyalty. The rich loyalty is only to to what they can get. So the poor need to look to God as their source to take them out of that financial spiral that they are into. And this is the time for the poor to get wise. The rich will use the money of the poor to invest in assets, and then they will rent back to the poor or sell it to them at an high cost. And I remember each times we have seen the financial market, especially the houses, would foreclose. The rich would, purchase all these houses, and they would, rent it to the poor. And when the poor are going through problems in terms of refinance their home or, trying to get a lower mortgage, most time the bank will turn them down. Take away their asset. The bank will not do that to the rich. And, the poor need to understand, that, that is how, things operate. And they need to read. One thing with the poor, you have to read, you have to study to realize what's going on. The next thing the poor need to do, they need to stop take their money and buy drugs or crack cocaine or marijuana. We have seen many countries right now trying to set up what we call medical marijuana to sell, the people, the poor, while, they would impose laws, to arrest, farmers and, things like that. And you have to realize, as the poor, that the rich don't, take their money and buy drugs or crack cocaine, right? You know, the poor is who do these things, right? And that is why we see all these crack houses within the poorer community. You would never see a crack house into a wealthy community. So very few wealthy people are going to spend their money to buy drugs and stuff like that. They will spend it, on education of their children, are trying to get them into a Ivy League university to take over from them. So you need to be wise to poor and stop, waste your money. The rich invest their money in education, and they set up business, to pass on to their children, while you waste your money in drugs and crack cocaine, right? Stop waste money on Ford cards and buying credit, and stop spending your money in witchcraft to fight against each other. Right. Some will spend thousands if you add up on witchcraft. You go to the palm reader or the voodoo man or the obeah man or whatever witchcraft, you spend to fight each other, or even breaking up each other relationship. The rich don't do that, right? And you have to understand that this is something that you need to stop. Some even refuse to tithe at 10%, because God is your source. They would rather spend it on witchcraft. So that is something that the poor need to rise up. Stop by these false hair, these eyelashes, and this body part to create a false image. And, it's, you spend it on empowering yourself and, start a business and stuff like that. Because most people don't care. Politicians no longer care for the poor. There are a lot of systems, as I said before, that are put in place. The rich only use the poor to make huge profit. But at the end of the day, what happened? You're very weird. You see the rich in prison. Right? Very weird. Right? But the poor, fill up these prisons where they make money, the beds and stuff like that. Now, Jesus' main purpose on earth was to equip the poor, the voiceless, and for them to have a better life. The poor has been forgotten, and many leaders have been, put greater hardship on the poor, to increase the rich. And the time has come, sadly, for each and every one to come together, because the cry of the poor are coming up. And even the church itself, forget their mandate of, feeding the poor, not just, to preach to someone, but Jesus, teach us within the scripture that if he care, not just for the spiritual, but for the physical need. And that is why he even teach us how to pray. The Lord Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. God care on a daily basis for the poor. And that is why he asks us to pray this way on a daily basis. That, God will provide, for the poor, the fatherless, and the widow. It is heartbroken, if you see what is happening globally, how much people is on the street. It is heartbroken. People are dying, can't afford medical things. Different laws have been passed, even immigration laws that are negatively, that coming against the poor, the fatherless, and the widow. And when you read the Bible carefully, you realize that even those within the Bible that would do wrongs at times, there was a refuge, a city that was set up, to help the people. They have the law of gleaning, where God instruct farmers during that time to ensure that, something would have, leave, that the poor itself would come in, and glean, those who cannot afford. And that is how Ruth, get, to meet Boaz, because Boaz, as a billionaire, a businessman, and I'm calling all the businessmen, to read about Boaz and be like Boaz. And, Boaz ensure that you obey the law of gleaning, to help the fatherless and the widow. Most companies are making super profit, and not 1 cent is going to feed those within the gate. the Lord specifically speaking about the interest rate. This high interest rate that are bringing many into poverty. And God is calling upon all the government of God, the civil government and the family government. The time has come, regardless of what. There are many things, each of you have within your household, that you can extend it to your brother. The Bible speaks about love the Lord with all your heart and with all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And when we start to practice, those two commandments, which is the greatest and which is what will take us into heaven, then we'll see transformation and change begin to take place. And we can save a life. We can help, many children out there who are dying because there's no food or drinking water. In Africa, in different countries, in Haiti and different places where people are dying, a lot of children in children's home. They need even toys, to give them some joy. And we can do it. All of us can come together. Businessman, you can do it. Greed is not a factor. Amen. God wanted to become sensitive and begin to, sponsor humanitarian, faith-based humanitarian or other NGOs that are touching the life of individuals. So I just want to give God thanks and praise this morning. And I pray for each and every one of you that you will reach out and that you will touch someone's life today. We give you all the glory, we give you all the praise. And we thank you as you're listening to Wealth and Wisdom on Romy Radio, Positively Power Pack. You're also listening and different social network. You're listening in Africa. God bless you and God will keep you in Jesus' name. Amen.